Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Ballerina Rose, and I'm going to be sipping on some Earl Grey tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, deep yellow, burnt umber, which I'll call brown, burnt sienna, which I usually call rust, Mars black, green oxide, and fire red. And of course, you can switch up those colors too if you like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil, and I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 6 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 2 round synthetic brush, and I'll refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. Of course, you can switch those up as well if you'd like. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying them. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you through your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same kind of paint and all the good stuff in between. So that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to be doing for the first step is we're going to be painting the wall. I will be using my large brush. The colors I'm using are mostly white, and I'm also going to be using a little bit of brown, a touch of yellow, and a touch of rust. I'm in essence going to be creating a very light beige color for my wall. So I'm going to use my large brush. What I've done is I've pre-mixed the color I'm going for you so you can see in a concentrated form, so you can do it on your side. I've separated out some of my white so I can use it for later, because we're going to need it later in the painting. So you don't want to use all of your white to create the beige. So for demonstration purposes, so you can see how I got to here, I'm going to use just a little bit of my white from here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take a tiny bit of brown, a tiny bit of yellow, and just a little tiny dollop of each color, and then I'm going to mix it together with my white. What I'm really looking for, see, that's a little bit too dark for me, so I would need a little bit more white in here. What I'm really looking for is a nice light beige color that does not look too brown, doesn't look too yellow, doesn't look too pink. I really just want it to be very light and neutral and just fade right into the background. So I'm just kind of adjusting this so it doesn't take on too much of any one color. I'm adding a little more white to it, so it's going to be on the lighter side. I do know that this color will get a little bit darker as it dries, so I'm planning for that. So I've got a pretty good match here, so that's going to be the color that I'm going to be using. And then what I'm going to do is I'm loading up my brush, and I'm going to have my wall coming down about 2/3 of the way down my canvas. So I'm going to mark the bottom corners of that wall, so that will be my visual stopping point as I paint my wall. So I can kind of pick my visual halfway point here, and then I can go about halfway between my finger and the bottom of my canvas. That's going to give me about 1/4 of the way, and the 1/3 of the way is somewhere in the middle of those two. And then I'm just going to kind of mark it. I can use my brush as a measuring tool to see how far down I marked it, and then I can come over onto the other side and give myself a mark in about the same spot. That's going to give me 2 visual stopping points for my wall, and then I'm just going to load up my brush, and I'm going to paint my wall using a left to right broad paint stroke. So I'm just going to go left to right. I want to have really good coverage on this, and because I want it to be a nice solid color. At the bottom of my wall, we're going to be putting a little bit of a shadow where it meets the floor, but until we get to that point, I'm just going to really use a good amount of paint, long strokes, going back and forth, left to right, which will give me a nice solid color. When you're using light colors like this, they are more likely to give you a nice solid color where you don't have to worry about having to do a second coat. But if after you get this done and it dries and you feel like some of the areas are not fully rendered and you want to add a second coat to it, feel free to do so. But as I'm getting close to the bottom of the wall, I'm keeping my eye on the prize, which is those dots, so I don't go any farther than that. And once I get all the way down to my markers, I don't have to worry about a perfectly straight line going across, but because I'm using such a long, broad stroke, my line will become pretty horizontal without me even giving much effort to it. And then once I've got a nice coat on there, I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm going to pick up brown paint and I'm going to put brown paint at the bottom of my wall. So right on top of the beige color. So what's going to happen here is we're going to create a natural shadow at the bottom of the wall. I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel just to get the top part of this shadow to blend. I don't want it to go up too high. So I just wiped my brush off on my paper towel and I will just kind of keep going back and forth as this paint is talking to each other and just get it to blend in. And then we're going to use this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry your large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting our floor. I'm going to be using my large brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, rust, yellow, and the wall color. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to be starting up at the back of the floor where it meets the wall, and I'm going to have it really dark. So that's where I'm going to use my black and my brown, and I'm going to go back and forth right at that spot. And in my head, this spot that we're hitting is out of focus. So it does not need to be a clean line. It's in essence just the darkest point at the bottom of the wall and at the back of the floor that are meeting each other, and it's just really dark. So you don't have to worry about having a really crisp line. So you'll see as I go, I'm going to in essence kind of be blending it in with this a little bit, and then as I come down the floor, it's obviously going to be blended. We don't have far to go from the back of the wall to, or the back of the floor to the front of the floor. So we're going to be transitioning from one color to the next fairly quickly. So I'm going to start with black and brown, then without washing my brush, I'll be going into rust and yellow, and then I'm going to be starting to pick up some of that original beige color from the wall to get the brightest area in the middle of the floor, and then it's going to transition a little bit darker at the front of the floor. You'll see how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to start with black and brown on my brush at the same time, and I'm just going to go right across this area that is the farthest part of the wall, and I'm just kind of dusting it across. I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. I want to be in control of this situation, and if I put a ton of paint on my brush, I'm not going to be able to control how I'm blending it and where it's going and stuff. So I'm going to just kind of blend it up a little bit into that wall, and I'm just kind of going back and forth until the paint is almost kind of dry. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of rust and brown without washing my brush, so I still have the remnants of some of that black on there, and I'm going to go up the wall a little bit and down into the floor a little bit, just so I can maintain a good way of it kind of transitioning from one area to the next. And again, I've got the rust and the brown. I think I'm going to put a little bit more of the rust and the brown so I can get a little bit more activity over here on the left-hand side. So if you feel yourself running out of paint and you want more, you can certainly add some on there. I want it to blend a little bit better into the wall as well. So I just added a bit more of the rust and the brown. And this is one of those steps that might take you a little while to get the hang of it and to get a soft blend from one area to the next, but it's definitely worth taking your time and getting it to go into whatever intensity that you would like. And if you go up too high or you feel like it's not blending well enough, just give it a minute, let it dry, and then you can kind of work your way into a second layer if you need to. And then as I come down the floor, you can see I'm taking a little while on this area. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to start picking up a little bit of yellow and my wall color without washing my brush. So this is where it's going to start to get lighter and lighter, and I definitely want to make sure that I'm blending it in with that previous section. So I'm going to kind of keep going back and forth in this area. I'm just going left to right. If you feel like you want to pick up any more of the darker colors through this, feel free to do so. Like I just picked up brown, rust, yellow, and a little bit of white to make sure that it transitions in through here. And if it goes too pink on you, that means that you have too much rust. If it goes too yellow on you, it means you have too much yellow. So you can always counteract it whatever way you want. And now I'm going to start picking up just my wall color to get this to go lighter and lighter in this midsection in through here. And again, this is one of those steps you might find yourself wanting to do multiple layers on it. Once you've got it done, let it sit a little while and dry a little while and see if it's what you would like it to be. And then if not, you can just kind of start back up from the back of the wall and do another layer on it. There's no harm in doing that. And so this is my lightest area. So again, I'm just using that wall color right now, getting it to kind of blend in with everything else that surrounds it. And now I'm going to start picking up a bit of brown and my wall color. So this way it's going to get a little bit darker as it's down towards the bottom of the floor. I'm not going to get it to go too much darker, but enough so it gives that dimensional element of that floor kind of coming out of the spotlight, which to me the spotlight is going to be kind of where the dancer's feet are. So this added bit of darkness at the bottom or at the front of the floor where it's closest to the viewer will provide that illusion. And of course you can keep tweaking this as much as you want, and then we're going to be using our pencil for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your large brush away, take out your pencil, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're drawing an outline for our ballerina feet and her legs, I guess, and her slippers. So I'm going to be using my pencil. I am going to be giving you some pointers and some markers, and we'll connect those, and hopefully by the time we're done, we'll have something that resembles some beautiful ballerina feet. But before you start this step, I do suggest that you make sure that your canvas is dry. It will definitely be a lot easier to draw on it when it's dry. So, you know, you could take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you could find some kind of fun fanning method to make sure that it's dry, or you could do as I did, and I just whipped out a blow dryer to get mine dry. So maybe yours is dry by now, but if it's not, I do recommend that you get it dry. So how we're going to do this is we're going to draw the top part of the legs first, and then we're just going to kind of work our way down. So I've made a couple of markers, and I'll tell you where they are, and you can make similar markers, and then we'll just connect the dots. So at the top of your canvas, you're going to make a marker at about the halfway point in your canvas, so somewhere right about here. You're going to go over from that, I would say about 2.5 inches, make yourself another marker. And then the other marker I have is right about here, which is almost halfway between this marker and over here, maybe a little bit shy of the halfway point. So I've got another marker in through here. Then I'm going to come below that and make 4 more markers that are about at equal height. So if this is where the floor kind of meets the wall, it's almost about halfway between the top of your canvas and there. That's where I'm going to make these 4 markers. And I'll tell you where they are in relationship to each other. So if you come directly down from this one, straight down, this one is just about at that same distance, maybe a touch to the right, and I've got a marker right in through there. Then if I come straight down from this one, like that, I'm going to come over maybe about 1/2 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch, make myself a marker. I'm going to come directly over from that one, just about, I would say 3/4 of an inch to an inch. And then this one, you can actually just come straight down from this one and make yourself another marker. So now what we're going to do is going to connect these markers. So the left leg is going to be sitting behind the right leg. So I'm going to do the right leg first. I'm going to connect this marker to here with a diagonal line, but I want it to look like there's a little bit of shape to the leg. So I will put a little bit of a curve into it. Not much, just a tiny, tiny bit. And again, you could certainly, as you paint later, you can certainly modify these lines as well. And then on this one's going to kind of come in a little bit and then kind of flat line a bit in through here. So this is about the top of her ankle. So this is going to be a really kind of slender part. So I'm going to just kind of come up in through here like this, and then maybe kind of kick it out just a little bit in through there. So again, nothing major in the curve sense, but just something that gives a little bit of shape or a little bit of movement to the leg. So the next one is I'm going to connect from here to here. This is in essence kind of the bottom of the calf of the leg, and this is going to be the back of the ankle. So I'm going to actually just kind of bring it out just a hair, not a lot, and then just bring it back in and just kind of flatline it in through here, something like this. And you can even kick it back out just a little bit if you want, if you brought it in a little bit more narrow. And then I need to connect here to this leg here. So I'm going to come up this about 2 inches, I would say, somewhere in through here. And I'm going to give this one a little vertical line like this, and then it's going to be a little bit of a diagonal kind of curved line in through here. So then what we're going to do is we're going to finish the feet portion, but I want to give you kind of a place to go, so which is going to be the tiptoe of the feet. So those are going to be on the floor. So this way it'll give you good guidance as to how big to make the rest of the feet. So I have the right one is going to be about halfway between where my floor meets my wall and the bottom of my canvas. So I have the tip of this toe right about in through here. And it is almost as wide as here. So if you were to use your pencil and say, okay, well, this is about as wide as I have it here, I'm going to travel straight down like this. And then I'm going to go to your halfway point, and I'm going to go over to the right, maybe about 1/2 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to make myself 2 dots that are a little bit less wide than that is. So I've got one right about here and one right about here, and I'm just going to connect those two. So that's going to give me the bottom of my toe. And then the left one is going to be slightly higher than here by maybe about 1/2 of an inch. I've got mine right about in through here, and this one isn't even an inch wide, but to know where I have it placed, if you travel straight down from this marker, down, 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 I'm going to go over to the right by maybe about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch. And you can make yourself your 2 dots that are a little bit less than an inch apart from each other, and then just connect those two. So this gives you that stopping point for the bottom of your feet. Now we just need to magically connect these 2 markers to these 2 markers, which is going to be a fun process. I do know that as we go through this, there will be a little bit left to your imagination and interpretation, but I'm going to explain to you what the parts of the body or of the foot are. So as you're doing this, you can imagine it in your head. And if you need to do any adjusting after you get the full foot on there, you can certainly do so. So in order to, I'm going to kind of go with the easiest one first and work my way to the more difficult one. So this inside, or this part of this left foot from this marker to this marker, I feel is the easiest part. It's going to be the front of this foot. So it's going to be the top part of the foot, the back part of the foot will be in through here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come down with where the ankle is going to be, and then I'm going to bump it out just a little bit where the front of the part would be, and I'm going to bring it back in where your toes are going to be. So when I do this, nothing's going to be very dramatic. So I'm going to start in through here. I'm going to finish this kind of straight-ish line for maybe about, I would say, 2 inches or so. And then I'm going to bump it out just a little tiny bit. Not much. It's going to come out just a little bit until I'm about in this a little bit before the floor meets the wall. So somewhere about in through here. And then I'm going to just kind of gently curve it back towards where, oh, let me get a white pencil so you can see when I go through this dark area. So as it comes down through this dark area like this, and then I've got my little toe in through here that's going to just kind of, so I have a little bit of a bend in through here, a little bit of a bump on the top of the foot part, and then this is going to be where my ankle is. So I'm going to do this one next. So this is going to be this foot, the front of it faces us. So this is going to be the rest of the ankle, and then the foot part is going to start in through around here, and then it's going to just kind of curve down to where the toe is. So I'm going to progressively get this line to continue in an inward motion towards the most narrow part of the ankle, and then right about where this meets here, I'm going to come just a little bit lower, and that's when I'm going to buckle it out just a little bit to show the back part of the shape of the foot. And then I'm just going to kind of progressively come down in this direction. And as I cross over into the darker floor, I'll use my lighter pencil so you can see it. I'm going to maybe get it a little bit wider where the knuckles of the feet might be, and then just kind of bring it back in through here to give you where it meets the toe. So again, yours doesn't have to be exactly as mine, and as we add the paint to it, it'll get a lot more shapely. So I'm going to move to the outside of this one in through here. So this is the ankle. There's going to be a little ankle bone in through here, and then the rest of the foot is going to come down in through here. It's going to be a little bit bumped out where you have this part bumped out in through here, and then right about in through here it'll come in a little bit and be another little bump where the rest of the foot is. So again, I'm going to bring this in a similar outward direction like this, but I'm going to have a little bit more of a bump on it, which will indicate that ankle bone portion. So something like this, but I don't want to bring it out too wide. You don't need it to be really very dramatic. I think I'm going to bring it a little bit like down in through here, and then right about here, maybe a little bit higher. That's when I'm going to start to bump it out. And you can use as a gauge your bottom here. You don't want this to bump out too much farther than your toe portion. So just know that we don't need massive bumps on our ballerina's foot. This is just a really delicate, slender kind of shape. So you don't need to make it too dramatic. And then as I come down in through here, I'm going to switch to my lighter pencil so you can see it. I'm bringing it in just a little bit, going to give it a little bit of shape for the bottom part of the foot, and then just bring this back in something like this. And again, you could certainly adjust yours in any fashion that you want. And then we're going to do the outside of this. So this is going to be where the your heel part of the foot is going to go. So I'm going to bring this down just a little bit further than here, maybe about 1/4 of an inch. Then I'm going to bring it to the left, maybe about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch. That's going to be the skin portion between the ribbon of the slipper and then the slipper itself. And then I'm going to bring this out. I would say probably about to here, so maybe about another 1.5 inches. This is going to be the heel portion, and again, you don't want it to go out too far and make it look too out of the ordinary. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring it back down, and it's going to come inward further than my ankle at some point, and then it's going to come back and meet the edge of this toe. So I've got this coming down somewhere in through here, and I'm giving it some, you know, enough body so it looks like it's full enough and it's not too slender. And of course you can certainly modify yours as much as you need to. This is going to be the inside of the foot. I'm bringing it in a little bit further than that, and then I'm just going to kind of bring it back down. Oops, switch my pencil so you can see it. Bring it down in through here, and then as I get towards that toe portion, I can just bring it around like this. And then of course I'm gonna quickly give you where the shoe and the ribbons are. So we already kind of started in through here. This is going to be the inside or the top part of the slipper. I'm going to bring it down to right about where a little bit above where the wall meets the floor, so maybe somewhere in through here, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a curve like this, and then a little bit of a curve like this, something like that. I'm going to give myself some of the ribbon in through here, and again, you can certainly modify yours in whatever fashion you want. I've got mine coming a little bit wider as the ribbon meets the slipper itself. I'm going to skip a little bit of a spot in through here, give myself an outline for the ribbon here. The ribbon, I think they're called laces. That might be the correct terminology for them. As you're doing it around the ankle, if you give them a little bit of a curve, that's going to show that there's movement to it as well. So as I'm doing this one up and through here, I'm just giving it a little bit of a curve, so that way it shows that there's some good movement to it. And let's see, that's skin, ribbon, 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 skin. Okay, making sure I've got them all. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the one on the right side as well. So I want the tip of my slipper to make sense with this one. So if we were to see the front of this foot in through here, this would probably come somewhere in through here. So I'm going to just travel over to the right and give myself a marker somewhere in the middle of this foot that's going to come up and give me the outside of this slipper in through here. And this is going to go right along the edges of the foot like this. So I'm just giving myself another little outline like that. I'm going to give myself the ribbon that's going to go, if this is the ankle part here, I've got one coming in this direction. I've got one coming over in through this direction. I've got one here, I've got one here, and of course you can have your ribbons going, or your laces, your ballerina laces going in whatever direction that you would like, and then I've got one over on this side coming like this. So again, you can certainly tweak yours all you want. We are going to be using our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your ballerina feet all nice and drawn in, you can put your drawing utensils down, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the base coat for our skin portion of the legs and the feet. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to use are my beige from the wall, and brown, and rust. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to make myself a pale pink type of skin tone for my legs. So this is the color that I'm going for here. What I did was I took my wall color and I added a little bit of brown and a little bit of my burnt sienna. And this is going to give me, the burnt sienna is going to allow it to have a little bit of a pinker hue to it, and the brown is going to neutralize it, so it makes it look a little bit more on the natural side. And I'm going for mine to be almost like a, well, kind of like my skin color. You can certainly make yours whatever skin color that you would like, but this is what I'm going for. And then once you've got the color that you'd like, I think that's looking pretty good, so I'll just mix all of these together here. Once you've got the color that you want, you're just going to paint in a base coat for your legs and your feet. So I used a regular standard pencil, which means it is going to show through my paint, which I planned for that. I actually kind of want it to bleed into my paint and be able to see the outline underneath it, which is going to help me through my process. But if you've used a type of pencil that you can't see through it, that's okay too. But I'm just kind of forewarning you, if you did use a regular pencil and you can see the pencil underneath it, that's all right. It's actually going to help to act as like a shadow of sorts between along the edges. I did a little skin piece there. I'm going to do a little skin piece in through here, and you don't have to worry about a perfect coat at this point, because this is really just the base coat for the skin. We have highlights and shadows which will give it form and shape later, so please don't feel that it needs to be perfect. Even if it looks a little bit streaky after you're done with this step, it's all right, because when we go to do those other steps on it, it will take care of that streakiness. So I'm just kind of bringing it all the way to my pencil marks, bumping into my pencil marks, going over them, and if you run into another section, don't worry about it. And when you get to this section, if you've used a pencil or a drawing utensil that's going to disappear, what I do recommend is just leaving yourself the hint of a little gap between them so you don't lose that line. But in my case, I know I'm going to be able to see the pencil underneath it, so I can just paint right over it. But again, if you're using some type of if you used some type of drawing utensil that you cannot see through, then you definitely want to make sure that you know where that line is going to be. And again, I'm just kind of going right to my pencil, bringing it all the way down to where I've got my little straps or laces or whatever you want to call those, the ribbons on your slippers. And then let's see, I have this part is skin. Just make sure you don't get confused which parts you've kind of designated as skin versus the ribbon part. And then once you've got these painted in, and again, they don't have to look perfect at this point, we are just giving them a base coat here. Once you've got this all painted in, you can wash and dry this brush, because we're going to be utilizing it for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the base coat on our ballerina slippers. So I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors that I'm using are my beige, yellow, and burnt sienna. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to create myself a light peachy type of color. So this is where I'm headed. And you can see it compared to my skin tone. So there's definitely more yellow in it. So what I've done is I've taken my beige color and I've added a touch of yellow, because I know that yellow can be really powerful, and a touch of my burnt sienna, and I've spun it together. And because I'm working right next to my skin tone, I can really tell if I am too close or too far away from that color. So I wanted to kind of be in the same value, so maybe a little bit darker, but not much. But I definitely want it to be of a different color. I want it to have that more of a peachy look to it as opposed to a pinky look. So this is getting pretty good to me. And then once you've got the shade or the color that you'd like, you can see here I'm definitely more yellow than that. Once you've gotten the color that you like, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint in my slippers. and my ribbons. So I don't need any fancy brush stroke. I'm just going to be going right to the edge, making sure I paint over my pencil marks. And if you need to reshape anything at this point, now's the time to do it. So you can see this is definitely a little on the more orangey kind of side, or more peachy type of side than the skin tone. And once you get it right next to it, you can really see the difference between the two of them. And I'm just bringing it right over the top of the other objects in the background. And so what's going to happen is it may end up looking a little bit darker as it goes over this over the floor background. So don't worry about that. That will all be taken care of when we do the highlights and the shadows and the second layer to it. And again, you can certainly tweak this color whatever way you want it to be. If you want yours to be more of a peachy tone or a more pinky tone, feel free to do so. But this provides a great base for us in order to make them look really shimmery and having that like almost like a metallic look to them with the highlights that we're going to put on later. So you'll see how it all works out in the end, but this is a great color to work as the base. And again, my pencil is going to show right through. So in a section like this where I have two pieces, oops, I just went into my background, where I have two pieces of the lace on here, I can go right over my pencil mark. On the back side of this particular one, I want it to look like the place where they tie the ribbons is over on this back side. So I'm going to bump out a couple of little pieces with this color. So something like this. This is just going to give us a little bit of spot to give the illusion that the ribbon is tied back there. And then I'm not going to do the same thing on this side, because this is going to be the ribbon would be tied in the back, in my opinion. Not that I have any ballerina slipper tying experience, but when I look at them in photographs, they seem to be tied in the back. But that might have just been the photographs that I looked at. But I'm sure that there is all kinds of ways that you can tie them that would definitely be accurate. You just choose whatever way that you would like to. And then as I'm doing this one, I am going to do a little sliver of the color going down the edge of the foot. So if you needed to, you could certainly use a smaller brush to get this little sliver down in through here. But if you don't stay within the lines, it's all right. You'll be able to make any kind of corrections or modifications as you need to. I tend to sometimes take my brush, if I need it, if it's a bigger brush and I need it pointy, I'll take it and I spin it on the side of my palette, and that will make it nice and pointy when I need it to be. And then I'm just going to go ahead and get this down in through here, this little tiny sliver over in through here. And then I am going to, for the next step, be using this same brush. So once you've got your base coat of your slippers, make sure that you go all the way down to your pencil mark on the floor. And again, even if you have a little bit of pencil mark showing through, or you know that you decided you didn't want to go all the way to your pencil mark, that's okay, because you'll be able to erase it. If you have a little, like I have a little white over there that I might end up erasing. And then I'm going to take this brush, wash it and dry it, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the base coat for our rose. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to be using are beige, red, black, and green. And how I'm going to do this is I'm just going to do a base coat for the bud or for the flower part, and then we'll do a base coat for the stem and the leaves as well. So I'm going to use my medium brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm pre-mixing myself a dark pink color. So I have used red and my beige color and pre-mixed them to get myself this beautiful neutral dark pink color. So I'm going to use that as my base color for my flower. So I want this flower to look pretty proportionate to my ballerina feet, but I feel that the rose might be a little bit closer to the viewer, so I'm going to have it pretty darn big over here. I'm going to start a little bit below my my wall line and maybe about halfway between my foot and the edge of my canvas over here. And I'm just going to start myself off with like a circle type of shape. Something like this is going to just get me going for the back end of the bud of the flower part. And then what I'm going to do is, as I come in through here, this is going to be coming in through like that. I'm going to have the end of my flower is going to be somewhere in through here. Maybe I'll have a little ripply kind of edge, something like this. And in my head, I'm imagining this is the rear end of the flower, and then this is going to be the front bud part of it. So I'm just going to have a big oval type of shape in through here. I'm going to color it all in with my beautiful custom pink, and then I'm going to put a couple of I'm going to have maybe a little petal over here on the back side, so I'm just going to bump out a little bit in through there, and then I think I'm going to have, maybe I'll bump that out a little bit more, a little bit of a petal kind of coming out the back side of my rose somewhere in through here. So you can really put these edge petals in wherever you want, and you don't even have to have them in a perfectly executed way. You can certainly have them bumpy if you want to. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry. That's all I'm going to do for my base coat. I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to be doing the base coat of my leaves and my stem with a dark green. So I'm going to take some of my green and just add a touch of black to it. It doesn't need to be super dark. The black can easily take over, but I definitely want it to be darker than this green over here, because I'm going to utilize that for some highlights on it. So I am making this dark green, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself a stem, and this doesn't even have to be a solid color. That's why I didn't necessarily need to pre-mix it too much. I'm going to have my stem coming from about the middle of the bottom of here. I'm going to have it have a little bit of a bend to it and come back over and kind of disappear behind my ballerina slipper. I'm going to have a couple of leaves coming off of it, so I'll have the stem of one come in here, just reloading my brush so I have enough paint on it. The leaves on these can be big, they can be little, you can really have them whatever way that you want. This one's probably going to be my biggest one in through here, and I'll get this one just to be kind of pointy over here and then kind of wrap around. And again, I'm just going for a base coat right now. I will be doing some additional details to it later, so I'm not really looking to make it too fancy. And in spots, I'm just going to give it the essence of a leaf. So maybe I've got a leaf coming back in through here that's coming maybe off of here. So again, I'm just kind of improvising. This isn't really going to be my focal point for my flower. I just want this to kind of disappear in the background, but I do want there to be the illusion of the leaves and of some realistic elements. So I'm going to put one over in through here too, coming off the stem. And then I'm going to take that color, whatever I have here, and just add a little bit of my base coat or my beige to it to get a really light version of that green, because I want to have a couple of ones coming off of the bottom of my flower. So I'm going to have one in through here, and again, this is just the base coat of it, so it doesn't have to be anything perfect, but I want this to be a much lighter version so it looks like it is being illuminated. And then I'm going to have one, these are the ones that you would find at the bottom of the flower. So I'm going to just have another one coming off in through here. And if you felt that you wanted to have the essence of them anywhere else, feel free to do so. But that's all I'm going to do for mine at this point. We are going to be using this same paintbrush for the next step. So once you've got your base coat for your flower, you can wash and dry that medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're putting the shadows on the skin portion of our ballerina. So I'm gonna be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm gonna use are brown and my skin color. So during this process, we're not finishing the skin. We still have highlights to go, but this is gonna be where we put the shadows on. So the shadows so we'll put the shadows and blend those shadows into the main area of the skin. The shadows are going to be, for this left leg, they'll be primarily on the right side of the skin, which to me is being cast by the right leg, our right leg. Oh, actually, it's probably the ballerina's right leg too, but it's on her. Anyways, the one over here is casting the shadow on this one. So there's going to be a really dark area in through here. This leg, the shadows, you'll see a little bit in through here. So I'm going to start with this leg first. I'm going to just put brown paint on my brush. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to start in this little crevice in through here. So I'm putting my brown paint and I am bringing it all the way to the edge, and I want it to be thicker widthwise in through here, and then it gets more narrow as it goes up towards and meets this leg in through here. So just because of the angle that it's at, that's where it would be the thickest, is in through there. So I'm not really doing much. I'm not even really blending it at this point, but I am kind of rubbing it so it's not a firm transition into here. We'll add the skin color to it to blend it in a second, but right now I'm just kind of putting the darkness on. I have a little area in through here, so you don't necessarily need a lot of paint on your brush, especially when you're in this little tiny area in through here. And I don't need it to come out much farther than I have this area in through here. So if I just kind of travel down in through here at the same kind of distance, that'll give me a great place to stop that shadow. And then the same thing on the edge of the foot down in through here. So I'm putting my darkest brown on the edge of the foot in through here. And then I'm just going to kind of rub it into the skin itself. I keep wiping my brush off on my paper towel because that gives me control, and it allows me to just kind of leave this edge soft over here on what is the left side of the shadow. Now what I got to do is I got to blend that into the rest. So I didn't wash my brush, but I did wipe it on my paper towel. I'm picking up some of my skin tone, and I'm going to get these two areas to blend in together. So during this process, you'll overlap the colors and you just kind of get them to blend in with one another. If the you are going to have remnants of the brown on your brush, which is totally fine. That's going to allow them to blend in even better. And if you need to pick up more brown to get them to blend in, that's great too. So once you've got them blended as much as you want them to be, then I'm going to just put a base coat over the whole leg without washing my brush again. I'm just making sure that I have a nice fully rendered coat of paint on the entire leg. So one thing that this will do, because I have possibly a little bit of brown still left on my brush, this is going to make this entire skin connect with one another, and it will also help me to make sure that I have painted all of the skin and left no areas unattended. So again, it's going to help to get everything to blend in together and talk together and make sure that I don't have any unpainted spots. And again, if you needed to tweak it anymore, feel free to do so. And know that we are going to be doing a highlight on it in a minute. This just kind of gets the skin fully rendered and gets your shadow on there at the same time. I'm going to do on the right hand side, or on our right leg, my biggest shadow, I just reloaded my brush with a touch of brown. My biggest shadows are going to come in where the slipper kind of goes in towards the foot. So that the slipper is kind of casting a little bit of a shadow onto the foot. And then I'm going to just wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm going to pick up my original skin color to get this to blend in. And this shadow does not come out very far. You could certainly have yours coming out a little bit farther than mine, or if you felt it needed to come out a little bit farther, you could certainly bring it out just a little bit more if you wanted to. You could also, if you felt that you needed some shadow under anywhere else, now's the time to do it. But I just reloaded my brush with the original skin color, making sure that I have a nice second coat on the entire area, bringing this right down to the slipper portion. You could, if you wanted your foot to look like it has more dimension or look like it's a bit of a older foot, you could certainly put, you know, shadows down by those toes a little bit if you wanted there to look like you could start to see the separation of the toes as it's coming out of the slipper, but that will be a personal preference. And then along these edges in through here, I'm just making sure that I have my second coat of paint going on in through here. And then on this leg here, I do want a little bit of a contour to show the shape of the leg. So I want a touch of a shadow over here on the left side. So I'm picking up my skin color plus a tiny bit of brown paint. So on this left-hand side of this leg up here, I just want a little bit of the evidence of it kind of having some shape to it. So that will help you to accomplish that without having to go too far into doing any details. And then of course when we add the highlight onto it later, that will help to add more shape to it as well. And then I'm just doing my base coat along the entire center area. And then we will be using this same brush for the next step. So you can fiddle with this all you want. If you need to add more shadows, feel free to do so, but we will be utilizing, I think I want to just kind of elevate this little shadow in through here. We will be utilizing this same brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. Alright, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting the highlights on our skin, which is in essence going to finish the skin. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to be using are white and my skin color. If I need to, I'll go into the brown a little bit if I have to do any tweaks on my shadows, but it's predominantly going to be white and my skin color. It will be easier for you if you have if your legs are dry at this point. So just, I would recommend kind of making sure that the base, whatever you just did, that they are pretty dry at this point, and it'll make your job a little bit easier. So for my highlights, I'm gonna have my highlights for this leg, I'm gonna have them over on the left-hand side. I'll have little bits of highlights within the skin areas in through here and here just to give them some form or shape. On this leg here, I'll have my biggest highlight kind of in through here, and then on the top portion of the foot in through here. And again, these are more what I refer to as contour highlights, which is going to tell the shape of the object as opposed to the highlight coming from like a light source. So I think that the leg is going to pop out the most around here, so that's where my highlight is going to be. For here, I feel it's going to be popping out the most there, and so on. So I'm going to start with white paint on my brush, and I'm going to tackle this one first. So I don't necessarily need my highlight to be all the way to the left-hand side of the leg. So I'm going to put it somewhere in through here, and I'm going to wipe my brush off if I feel like I have too much paint on there, and I'm just going to kind of rub it out into the leg itself. I'm bringing it down towards the ribbon portion, and I'm going to start to pick up my base color to blend it in. I'm gonna most likely, as I do these highlights, blend it as I go, as opposed to when we did the shadow area, how we put the darkness on and then blended them all. I think I'm gonna do these ones kind of on the fly, because it'll make my painterly brain easier or work better with the highlighted part, so I can blend it as I go. So something like this is gonna work for the highlight. Then I'm gonna repeat that in through here, just picking up a tiny bit of white paint on the back side of this little piece of skin in through here, and then I'm just going to bring it over into this area. And once I feel like I've got it far enough, then what I'm gonna do, and you can even like bump it out a little bit, like maybe the slipper is really tight in through here, so your skin is being, or her skin is being bumped out a little bit. You can do that. Feel free to play with that. Then I'm gonna pick up the skin color and just get these to blend in. And of course you can tweak it as much as you feel that you need to. Just getting some more of that skin tone on in through here. And again, many layers might be your answer if you need to continue to paint layers on it. And just know that the skin color will get a little darker as it dries. So just, you know, mentally prepare for that as you're doing it. It might look a little bit lighter when it's wet, and then when it dries, it'll get a little bit darker. I think I'm gonna work on this little piece up here just a bit more, so it's a little bit more smooth and a little smoother transition from one to the next. And you know, sometimes just continuing to play with something or to add these little layers on top of it will help to make it into more of a natural look, because especially when you're working with skin, because skin has so many layers to it and so many tonal values to it that sometimes just one layer is not going to do it. So if you feel, you know, you've put that layer on there and then it's like, it just doesn't have enough dimension to it, or it doesn't feel like it looks real, it might just mean that you need another layer or two on it. So I just kind of keep playing with the layers and seeing what they do as they dry, and then just kind of working with it. So I have a little bit of the white plus my skin tone on my brush right now to put a little bit of a highlight in through here. It doesn't always just have to be white, especially when you're going down into these darker regions. I can certainly just use my skin tone plus a little bit of white. I'm going to go on to the right leg. I'm starting with white on my brush. My biggest highlight is going to be up towards this top portion of the leg and kind of in the center of the top portion of the leg. And then I'm just going to kind of rub it out so it blends in with those neighboring skin tones. And then I'll pick up some of that skin color to make sure that it's all blending in nicely together. And you can see as I'm doing this, I'm kind of staying, you know, I'm going near the edges, but I'm not bringing that light color totally near the edges, because this is going to provide me with more of a natural look if I can keep some of the dimensional aspect to it, being my highlight is up here and it just gradually works into the rest of the leg. And I just making sure that I've got it looking the way that I want to. Sometimes, like right now, I have both the white and the skin color on my brush at the same time. And if you feel that you want anything to go darker, if you felt like you wanted to add more darkness down in through here, you could certainly pick up your brown. I just picked up a little bit of my brown and the skin color. Maybe you can even add a little bit of a muscle in through here. You can really just play with this by looking at, you know, or understanding what the anatomy might look like. If you feel like it would have a bigger muscle down here or a bigger, you know, bone poking out, you can certainly just create that illusion with the highlights and the shadows. And then down on the foot, I just picked up some white paint. My biggest highlight is going to come right in this area in through here. This is going to be where the foot pops out the most. And then I'm going to just kind of rub this in along the sides. And I'm going to get this foot to look more on the realistic side by having this one part of the foot pop out. And that's going to give the illusion of it bending. This part is kind of bending forward. And then as I work my way into the rest of the foot, I'm using some of the skin tone plus maybe a little bit of white on my brush, just so maybe it doesn't go as light as that lightest spot. And of course you can certainly play with the shadows if you want there to be maybe a little bit of a shadow indicating part of the, you know, muscle or something in through here. You can add a little bit more of your brown. So again, you can really have some fun just working with getting it to look nice and realistic by adding those bits of highlights and shadows. I think I want a little bit more highlight in through here. And I can't forget about these two little areas in through here. So I think I've got a little bit of a highlight over here on this part. And then maybe that would probably be a little in the shadow. This little guy over here, maybe a little bit, something like this, maybe a little bit of brown on my brush. And then we are going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your legs as highlighted and finished as you want, you can switch to your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're painting our shadows on our slippers. So I'm gonna be using my small brush, and the colors I'm using are brown, rust, and my base color, which is that peachy color that we made. So how I'm gonna do this is I'm going to, in essence, kind of be outlining certain things like my ties or my ribbons. I'll put a little kind of shadow underneath those, which will be kind of outlining them. I will be putting a little bit of detail work, so to speak, along the edge of the slippers, which will be kind of like the seam of sorts, which will have a little bit of a shadow in it. So that's what we'll be doing there. There's also a little kind of dark piece at the bottom of the shoes, which I'll put that in place, and some little contour shadows along the sides. So how I'm going to do this is I'm always going to have both rust and brown on my brush at the same time to create the shadow, and then we will kind of blend it in with the base color in a little while. So I'm going to put both rust and brown on my brush at the same time. And I'm just gonna, I guess, maybe start at the top and work my way down for this one. So I'm gonna, and I'll tell you everywhere where I'm gonna put them. So I've got a little shadow going in where the ribbon ties in the back. So I'm just putting a couple of little shadows in through there, picking up some more of the paint. I've got a little outline or an underline on this piece of my ribbon on the leg, something like that. I'm going to have a little bit at the back of the ribbon. So what I'm doing is I am putting it along the edge, and then I'm pulling it in the curved direction of that ribbon. I can put a little bit down in through here if I wanted to. So maybe this one goes in that direction. I'm going to put some on the front side, so I'm just reloading my brush. So what happens when you're using multiple colors on your brush at the same time like this, you end up getting this great diversity in the colors. So that way nothing is too solid of a color, and you've got, you know, again, good diversity as you're going through this process. So I'm just pulling, going along the edge and just kind of pulling it into the shoe in through like this. And then once I've got it in the area that I want it, what I can do is I can just wipe my brush off on my paper towel and pick up some of that original peach color and just get it to blend in a little bit. I don't need it to blend very much, but enough so it's not necessarily too much of just a stripe of sorts. So this just helps to get it blended in just a little bit more. I don't think I need it much over in through here. And then I just wipe my brush off on my paper towel. If I felt that I needed a little bit of a shadow underneath the ribbon right by the leg, I can certainly just add a bit of darkness right in through there. I've got the bottom of the ribbon in through here. So for me, my highlight or my light source is from above, so I wouldn't necessarily have a shadow on the top of this ribbon. So I'm going to actually end up having a highlight up there. So I'm going to have the shadow at the bottom side of the ribbons, so, or of the pieces of the shoe, something like that. I've got it over here on the right side, and of course this one is going to just kind of get pulled in this direction. I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel, pick up some of my original peach color just to get this to blend in, and then maybe I've got a little kind of dip in through here just because of the foot, the shape of the foot, something like that. And then I'm reloading my brush with brown and rust, and I'm going to put the outline of this little detail object, the detail seam. So I'm just kind of utilizing the brown and the rust, and I'm going for just a sketcherly type of paint stroke. You could certainly have yours super clean looking and make it have beautifully clean edges to it, but I'm going for something that's much more kind of interpretive. I know that the elements that we're putting into this are really going to make it look realistic without having to go full on into photorealistic detail to it, because we're putting the shadows in the right place. We're putting dramatic highlights where we need them to be. So all of those other elements, when you look at this painting from a distance, will definitely give it a very natural look to it without having to go full on photorealism. So I do want there to be some wrinkles and stuff in through the foot, and there's going to be a shadow along this back side of it, as well as a dark area at the bottom of the foot. So I'm just going to kind of, for an easy kind of path to take, I'm going to just kind of outline this exterior edge to get this nice darkness in through here, and then I'll add the what I'm going to refer to as kind of the ripples along the edge, and I'll add this bottom part in a minute because that's going to take some black. I don't know if I said that I was going to use black, but I'm going to use black along this bottom edge in a minute. But right now I'm still just using rust and brown. I'm going to get myself some little contour wrinkles of sorts. So this is going to be where the foot bends in through here. So this is going to add some great dimension to it. Maybe we've got a wrinkle back here, and maybe we've got a wrinkle up in through here, maybe a little one back here. I am going to, before I get too much farther, I have another shadow on this side, but I want to get these to blend in a little bit before I go too far. So I'm going to pick up some of my peach color and just kind of get these to blend in just a little bit. And again, you can have yours more subtle or more dramatic than mine. I'm just getting mine to appear to be what I would feel would be kind of on the more natural side. I think I'm going to put a little bit more darkness over here towards the bottom of the foot, something like that. And of course, you can certainly tweak yours as much as you want to. Once you've got things on there, you can certainly just kind of keep readjusting them until they are in the realm that you want them to be. And again, I'm using my dirty brush right now with the peach color just to make sure that this blends in with the main coat of the slipper itself. I'm going to put a cute little kind of seam along the side of the shoe as well, because I saw this a lot. So I'm using brown and my and the peach color just to give myself this illusion of a little seam along the side of the shoe and through there. And then I'm reloading my brush with rust and brown to get this really dark shadow along the tip of the toe in through here. And then of course I will get it to pull up and occupy a good amount of space over here on this right hand toe. And then once I've got that, I'm gonna put that black area at the bottom of the shoe, and then we'll move on to the other foot, just making sure that this blends in with the main area. So I picked up a little bit more of that base coat. Now I'm going to put a touch of black paint on my brush to get this bottom part of the shoe on here, just making sure that it is also represented because I saw it a lot. So just making sure that it's on there too. And then I'm going to make sure that I've got this dark enough. So just make sure that I've got, that was a little bit too much black on my brush, that's okay. Just making sure this front side is nice and as dark as I want it to be. So I just added a bit more brown to that. And like I said, you can certainly keep tweaking yours as much as you want to. I'm going to move on to the other foot here. So just making sure I don't have too much black on my brush. I just washed and dried it. I'm going to reload with the rust and the brown, and I'm going to start that process all over again. So I've got my separation between my I don't know, I know I'm using the wrong word, my I don't know, ankle ties. So I'm going to bring this one on over here. I'm going to bring this one in over. This one's going to come all the way. Maybe this one goes into here. This is the side of the shoe. I think something like that. Making sure I'm going to bring some of this, maybe a little bit more brown on my brush. Get my shadow going. Ankle just grew a little bit on me. My shadow going over here and over on this side, and then I'm just pulling it in to make sure that it blends in with that, with the shape of the ankle. So I'm putting it over on the edge and then just kind of pulling it in a little bit. Gonna do the same in through here, and then I'll put that peach color back on my brush to make sure that these all blend in together, or they blend enough for me to like. So I didn't even wash my brush. I just kind of picked up that center, that peach color, and I'm getting them to just kind of work in with one another so they look like they belong together, and that it's a natural kind of shadow coming from the side. And then what else do I need? I need a little bit of shadow over in through here. So every time I go from the peach to the shadowy colors, I do wipe my brush off on my paper towel. So that way I've got, not necessarily a clean brush, but definitely one that has not a ton of paint on it. That's really an important trick for me, is to never let my paint take control. I want to be in control at all times. So the way that I do that is I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. So I need some shadows down in through here. I think I want some shadows in my slippers over here. And then definitely going to have some shadows down in through here. Just making sure that they are being pulled into the foot to make sure that we've given it some good contour. I think I'm going to put a little bit of that peach back on my brush just to make sure this one up here blends in enough for me. That works out. I think I need a little bit more shadow underneath this little piece just to, again, make sure that we've got all that movement that we want and the dimension that we want. Make sure that I've got one in through there. That's looking good. And then I want to make sure I'm going to come down into the shoe itself. So orange, rust and brown are my colors here. So I'm making sure that I have a nice shadow over on this side, and of course that it kind of works its way into the foot, into the toe in a natural way. So that's why I'm curving it like this. I do want to have a seam in the front of here like I had here. So again, I'm going to just use that rust and the brown to give myself the illusion of a little bit of a seam of sorts, so something like this. And again, it doesn't have to be firm. This is just, we're just giving the illusion of it. When we go to give the highlights and all that good stuff too, that will help this pop out a little bit more as well. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put some of a nice shadow down this side. This one doesn't necessarily have to be right at the edge. This is gonna be more of like a shiny type of shadow where we're going to have a little bit of a highlight over on the left-hand side of this mark that we're making right now. And again, I'm just kind of pulling it naturally into the foot, into the base area of that foot, something like this. And then I'm going to pick up the original peach color. Again, you can see how this is kind of systematic, how I do this, just to make sure that I have executed the same style of technique throughout the whole step. So if I'm doing shadows, I like to kind of make sure that I do them all in a similar way. If I'm doing highlights, I like to make sure that I'm doing them all in a similar way. They don't all have to be the same way from one painting to the next, but on that same painting, it helps if you can carry that thought process from one to the next. So this little black part, we're not going to see too much of it underneath here, but I am going to put a little bit of darkness at the bottom of this toe region. So you can kind of get the idea that there is a dark section down there, but I don't necessarily need for it to go all the way black like that. So I'm just kind of giving a little bit of a hump in through here to show that toe part. I think I'm going to end up erasing a couple of my little pencil marks that I see are still evident in through here. And then we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you feel that you've got all of your shadows in place and that you've got enough darkness represented throughout your shoes, you can take this brush, wash it and dry it, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to be doing for the next step is I'm doing the highlights to my ballerina slippers, which in essence is finishing them. So I'm going to be using my small brush. I'm going to be using white and my peach color. And if I feel I need to go into any other colors, I'll let you know, but that's in my head. That's predominantly where I'm going to be staying. So I am going to be putting the highlights in the position that I feel that the object is closest to the viewer. So if I'm working on this area, to me, the part that's going to be highlighted is right here because I feel that that part would be bumped out closest to the viewer. If I'm working on this area in through here, I feel like this would be my lightest area, like this would be closest to the viewer. When it gets into the wrinkles and stuff like that, it's kind of a mixed bag, but if you feel, wherever you feel that wrinkle would be closest to the viewer, that's where you would bump it out the most. So I'm going to start with my small brush and white paint, and I'm going to take this section, for instance, and I'm going to put a whole bunch of white paint. I'm using kind of a left to right curved type of line in whatever curve that object is going in. So this one would probably go in this direction. And then once I feel that I've got it in the area that I want it, then I'm going to just pick up some of that peach color and get it to blend in a little bit along the edges. So that's going to give me my extreme highlight in the brightest area of that particular section of the ribbon or of the shoe. And of course you can certainly modify it and keep tweaking it as you see fit. So on these little ribbon parts over here, I just really need to add just a tiny bit of the illusion of a highlight somewhere in through here. So I'm really not doing much to those. And then when I get into here, I'm going to put my brightest white somewhere in through here, bending it in the direction that I feel that piece of ribbon is going in. Then I'm going to pick up my peach color and get it to blend along the edges so it makes sense. Again, it doesn't have to be a perfect blend, but just something so it doesn't look like you've got a just a stripe going on in through there. And then again, I'm just going to kind of keep repeating this. So if I have this big section in through here, this is going to be more of a wider section. So I feel that there's a couple of light areas in here. So I've got the light from the top of this particular section. I've also got this big section in the middle here, and then I've got maybe a little section that bumps out towards the viewer in one of those wrinkle kind of things that I was talking about. So I'm going to just kind of blend this in, pick up some of my original peach color to make sure that it blends in well. And even if you put that peach fully on top of the highlight that you just did, that's okay. It's just going to make the peach a lighter version. So that works too. So if you want to have a lighter section, but just not all the way white, you could always use both the peach and the white on your brush at the same time, or you can put down a layer of your peach and then come back with a little bit of the white on top of it. So again, I'm just kind of going slower in these smaller sections because they're smaller, but I definitely want to make sure that I've got some highlights. So I'm working around some of those wrinkly areas that we put in the shadows, making sure I've got a good highlight in through here. And again, peach and white a lot of times can be utilized at the same time on your brush. Like right now, I'm going to have both peach and white as I do this little highlight down the side in through here, and this will give me varying tones of my highlight. If I want it to be really bright, I can just stick maybe a little area of just white in through there. Maybe I've got some highlighted areas in through here, but I don't think I want them to go all the way white. So I'm using peach plus the white on my brush in through here, and this will give me a lighter shade of my peach without going totally white on me. And then maybe I've got, this is looking pretty good, maybe a little bit in through there. And then I definitely maybe want a little movement in here to show that this toe area is buckling the shoe a little bit. And then I really want to have a nice light area coming down in through here. So I'm going to kind of maneuver my brush like in a kind of a left to right motion and get it to go a little bit shorter or skinnier as it comes down towards that toe. And it's a little bit at a kind of a curved angle, just so it's not so perfect. I like it to have some movement in it. And then I'm going to go ahead and blend it with that neighboring peach. So I didn't wash my brush. I'm just kind of picking up some peach, make sure that it blends in. But I don't want this highlight to get rid of all of my shadowy areas. I really want this to look like it's shiny. So in order to do that, it has to have a lot of contrast to the color that it's next to. So if you end up making it too much the same color, then you're going to lose that shiny aspect to it. And I think I want to elevate this area just a little bit more. So I'm just adding a little bit of highlight in through here, but not a lot, just enough to give it some more dimension. So something like that I think is going to really work. And maybe a teeny bit more in through here and up in through here. All right, so I'm going to move on to my maybe a little bit more here. I feel like the heel needs to be a little bit lighter. And of course, I'm sitting here this close to mine. I know that when I feel like I'm all done, I'll step away from it or step, at a distance from it, and that will give me a better view on it. So I might end up, once I step back from it, I might say, oh, well, I think this area could use a little bit more lightness, or this area could use a little bit more darkness. And I always recommend that you do the same, because it's really difficult to see the painting in its entirety when we're sitting, 6 inches away from it. So as you're doing yours, just, don't feel the pressure of having to get it right on the first shot. Just keep tweaking it until you feel that you've got it into the brightness or the tonal values that you want it to be in. So I'm going to move on to my other foot in through here. So I'm just reloading my brush with some white. I'm going to just kind of start at the top and work my way down like I did with the other one. So I've got my light area in through here up at the top. Then maybe I've got this area in through here. And again, I'm just kind of using that curved brush stroke in the part of the strap or that particular section that I feel is going to be the closest to the viewer. So something like this. And then before I go too far, I think I'm going to put some peach on my brush and make sure that these blend in. So I just wiped my brush off on my paper towel, and then I picked up some of that original peach just to make sure that this brightness blends in with the stuff that sits next to it. Again, I'm going for high contrast here, so these look really shiny, but I still, again, want these bright areas to blend in or make sense with what they're sitting next to. So just adding that lightness in the middle would look great, but if it doesn't necessarily speak to the area that's sitting next to it, it might look a bit disconnected. So that's why I do make sure that I try to get them to look like they're talking to each other, even if they overlap just a little bit. That helps out. I don't really need too much down these sides, maybe just a little bit of the peach and a touch of white just to give them a little bit of a highlight, but not much, I don't think. I've already kind of got that seam part designated in through here, so I've got some white with the peach on my brush right now, just getting this section to pop out in front of the foot section itself. But again, I'm just using a loose sketcherly type of brush stroke. You could certainly make yours as firm as you want. And then my highlight down this shoe, I'm actually going to have kind of two sections in order to make it really look nice and shiny. So I'm going to have a big one in through this section. It's going to get kind of normal color in through here, and then another highlight over in through here. So I have the white paint on my brush. I'm starting pretty broad and wide up in through here. And then I'm just kind of going with the curve of what I feel to be the foot. And I'm just kind of going left to right, kind of letting myself run out of paint a bit and just making sure that I've got these edges on a kind of soft way. And then I'll do another section of this lightness, just reloading my brush here over in through here. And again, I'm going to leave a little bit of a darker space kind of at the bottom or in between these two sections, just making sure that I've got it well represented the way that I want to. And then I'm just kind of pulling it in a curved type of way, letting myself kind of run out of paint. And then if I need them to speak better together, I just picked up a little bit of peach, and I would make sure that they connected in the middle, but not so much that they are combined into one section. And then I would just kind of keep fiddling with it. You know, again, look at it from a distance, make sure that you've got everything connected the way that you want. And then we're going to be using this same small brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are finishing our rose stem and the leaves. I'm going to use my small brush. I am going to be using black, green, and white, and I think that's it. Maybe a little yellow too, but if I do, I'll let you know. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of black paint on my brush. And what I'm doing is I'm going to give myself some little veins of sorts in my leaves. So I'm going to just kind of come in through here and then give myself maybe a little bit of shadow and give myself these curved little lines. You could use a little bit of watered down black paint if that helps to make it flow a little bit better. And these again are just going to be background noise, so don't feel like you've got to make them perfect. This is just something that's going to add some neat dimension to it. This one in through here, I'm just going to kind of add a little bit of a vein and then just kind of add some little curved lines coming down in through it. Back here, this one doesn't need anything. Maybe a little bit of a shadow underneath my stem of sorts. This one doesn't need anything. That one doesn't need anything. So then I'm just gonna wash and dry my brush, and I'm gonna be using my green and white. You can use them at the same, oh, that was my beige, green and white. You can pre-mix them or use them at the same time or use your regular green. It doesn't matter, just any lighter version of green than what you have on there. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just doing the opposite or filling in kind of the opposite areas with a little bit of a lighter green than the base coat. I think we need a little bit lighter than that. There we go. I think that should work. There we go. And this is just giving me a bit of an illusion that these are three-dimensional. I am not doing anything fancy to them, just adding a bit more dimension to them. If I want a little edge to it, I can put a little edge. Same thing with over here, just giving myself the hint of a highlight along the edges, maybe just something like that. A little hint of a highlight on the stem, maybe a little bit in through here and here. These two in through here, I feel like they actually need a little darkness as they're meeting the flower itself. So I just added some of my green on there, and just I'm going to put a little bit of darkness as they're meeting the flower itself, so that way they've got a bit of dimension on them. And then if you want to finish or add any kind of additional little highlight to the edges, you can certainly do that. Again, these are just meant to be the really bright ones that are on the edge, so you might not even see any bit of detail because they're so light in nature. And then we're going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your leaves all nice and fully rendered as much as you want them to in your stem, you can wash and dry your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing our flower portion of the rose. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors that I'm using are the pink that we made, red, black, and white, and any variation thereof. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself kind of a roadmap of sorts of where I want my petals to be by giving a simple outline, and then I'll show you how to make your petals look pretty realistic in a simple way. So I'm going to be taking some of my original pink and white on my brush at the same time. This is going to naturally just give me a lighter version of the pink, and this is going to allow me to give myself some great outline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of separate out where I want that center to be. I already have a couple of markers that are going to give me some good separating points that will guide me to that center. So I see here that I have an area right here that can be utilized as a petal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from here, and I'm going to just bring this in this curved manner in through there. Then if you need to, you can reload your brush, or if you've got enough on there, great. I've got this area in through here, right here. So I'm going to take this. This is going to come pretty close to this one. I'm going to bring this one in somewhere in this vicinity. Then I keep reloading my brush. I just want to make sure that I have a nice, good, fluid kind of area for it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up in through here, and I'm going to make myself another little petal coming out in through here. And they don't have to be perfectly executed. This one I'm going to have meeting this one and come down in through here. So I'm kind of slowly separating out where I want that center area to be. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come from, I would say, like midway up here, and you don't necessarily want these lines to be super straight. They can have some ripple to them. That's going to make it look even more natural. And I'm going to bring this one maybe up in through here somewhere, and I don't even need to have the edge of it or anything. So now I've kind of separated out where I want that center. Oh, let me continue this one. We're going to continue this one over to this edge over here, and then just bring it down in through here. So in the center of my roses, I usually have like a little spiral of sorts that gets me going on how to create the petals in the center. So I'm going to start my spiral in here. So I just kind of go around a couple of times in a circular type fashion, and then I can start pulling out some of the edges of the petals. So you don't really need to do anything too fancy. This is a really simple technique to getting the edges of the petals to look pretty darn natural. And then I have these two little pieces over in through here. So once I've got my petals laid out, I just need to add my highlights and my shadows. So I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel, and my shadows are going to be deep on the inside of these petals, and my highlights are going to be on the outside and on the edges. So I'm going to start with red and black on my brush for my really deep shadows. So I want my shadows to be underneath and inside some of these. So I'm going to put a shadow right in through here. This is going to be at the bottom of this particular section of the bud. I'm going to have one in through here. And then once I got my shadows on there, I can pick up my pink color and just kind of blend them in. And or I picked up a little bit of red. So the red will help to get these this pink to be a little bit deeper, especially in an area like this, which will be underneath the flower. So I've just made that area much darker, and it's going to be at the bottom of my flower. Then I'm going to pick up some more red and black and start to add some more really deep shadows in through here. So I've got one in through here, maybe a really deep one in through here. And I go pretty darn dark and deep inside that little crevice. I'll do a couple, then I wipe my brush off, pick up a little bit of red to get it to blend in with the neighboring area within that shadowed part. And you can really pick as many deep dark areas as you want. It's kind of a visual preference on your part. If you really like that intense deep look inside of them, I'm going to put one over in through here, then you can utilize more black. If you want it to be more delicate looking, you could use more of just the red as your shadow color. So you can really intensify it by the deepness of the color. Maybe you want this to be more of like a pink rose as opposed to I've got mine kind of leaning a little bit more on the reddish side because of my shadows on the inside, but you could certainly, if you wanted yours to be more on the pink side, just go for a really dark, maybe magenta type of color as your shadow color, as opposed to what I'm using, which is the red and the black. So again, steer it into whatever color intensity or channel that you would like. I mean, maybe you want to have a yellow rose. If you want to have a yellow rose, you would definitely, you know, use maybe like a brown as your shadow color. So you can see here right now I'm just kind of playing with all of these deep little shadows in through here where I feel that those the deepest, darkest sections would go, and I'm just kind of blending it out into the main body of it. I'm going to have a couple of petals kind of leaning over, like this one's going to lean over, this one's going to be leaning over. So if I'm going to have that one leaning over, I'll have a lighter spot on it. But right now I'm just kind of getting enough shadows in here. Now I'm going to transition into the main color to get it to go towards the lightness of the edges. So if I have areas like in through here, I know that I want this to be a little bit darker in through here, so I just put a touch of black with my peach on there, or with my pink, sorry, on there to get that to go towards the lighter side. I know that I want this over here to be kind of the darkest part of this section. So you can also just go through each section and say, where do you want that darkest part of that section to be, and then build it towards the light. I think I need a couple of little darker areas in through here just to make sure that I've got some good shadow in through here. And then again, once I've got all of the shadows that I feel that I'm going to need, what I'm going to do is just build my way to those very light edges. So I just washed and dried my brush, and I'm going to pick up some white paint, and I'm going to attack my light areas. So I know that I want a real light area in through here. I want real lightness here. I want lightness on the edges of my petals, and then I'll get them to kind of blend in with the rest. So I've got this one is going to be really light in through here. So I've got a bunch of white on my brush, getting that main area where I want it the lightest, and then I'm picking up my original pink to get it to blend in on the sides. So that's going to give me that natural gradient from the light to the dark. So as I'm doing this, you know, you could utilize both colors on your brush at the same time. If you wanted them to really blend in well together, feel free to utilize them on your brush at the same time. But you may have to just kind of transition, you know, from the light to the dark in a looser fashion. Sometimes that helps too, but you just want everywhere to talk to each other. So I'm wiping my brush off, picking up some more of my white. I want the edge of this petal to be really, really bright, and it's going to just kind of fade into folding into the inside of the flower. So I got it really light on the edge, blending that white out, and then just picking up some of my original pink and getting it to blend into the shadow. And if I needed to, I could certainly pick up some more of my shadow color, but this seems to be working out pretty well for me. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of a highlight with my peach and my white over on the tip of here, just so you can see the beautiful tip of that flower, that petal. So in through here, I think I'm gonna have this is my nice light section, and then it's just gonna fade into the darkness, into my shadow. So you can, now that I have, again, my shadows are there, so I'm just telling myself where my highlights are, and this one's gonna have it on this section of this petal in through here, and it's gonna fade into the darkness in through here. So I've just got that white, and I'm just gonna kind of fade it right into the darkness, and I just kind of repeat this on every single little section of the flower wherever I wanted that brightest spot. And these are kind of will probably take you the longest, these ones that are the larger ones, and you can certainly have fun with them and keep playing with them. But if I've got this light area here, it would make sense as I come into these ones to make the exterior of the light ones kind of in that same spot. So that's what I've done here, and then I'm just going to get that lightness to blend into the darkness a little bit. If I need to pick up a little bit of my pink, I can do that. And when you get to these tiny ones, sometimes it's just a matter of putting a little tiny, you know, mark making of sorts on those edges just to get them to pop out just a little bit. You don't really all the time need to do a whole bunch of work to them. Sometimes you can just put that little bit of brightness at the end to tell the viewer, yep, that's the edge of that petal. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of brightness over on this one, and then I'm just going to keep fiddling with them until I feel that I've got them in the intensity that I want. I think that they're pretty darn close. I've got my highlights where I want them, I've got my shadows where I want them, and then it's just going to be a matter of doing, I missed this one over here. Let's tackle this one before I feel like I'm done. I think this one is going to be, I think we're going to kind of see the outside of this one like this. And I'll just kind of keep playing with mine until I feel that they're as intense as I want them to be. I think this one goes to here. See, now I've got to decide on the fly what one goes to where, because they weren't fully speaking to the direction. So I'm just adding a little bit of detail here. So this one kind of sits outside of that one, and I'm just going to make sure that I have all my little tips here. And then we are going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your flower fully rendered and you've got all of your beautiful highlights and any little bits of detail that you want on them, you can put this small brush away. Take out your medium, yeah, that's looking good. Take out your medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're painting reflections in a nice, loose way. So I'm gonna be using my medium brush. I'm gonna be using all of my colors, like all my custom colors, whatever colors I used for my shoes and my rose, those are the colors I'm using for this step. So I'll call them out as I'm using them. So the first thing I'm gonna do is my shoes. Now, reflections can get darker as they come closer to us. They can be warped or skewed. So if yours don't come out exactly mirror image, that's okay. They're not necessarily intended to. What we're really looking for is just a similar color pattern and perhaps a similar shape and maybe a little bit darker or more out of focus. So I'm going to start with my peach color from my shoes, and I'm going to start over here on the right one. I'm going to start right underneath my shoe, and I'm just going to bring this down in a similar shape as it comes down to the bottom of my canvas, and I'm really just going to paint it in with that color. So I've got my original peach color, and I'm not even using a lot of paint because I wanted to maybe take on some of the color that is underneath, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other shoe. So just bringing my peach color, and I'm watching the the actual foot itself. So I'm going to bring this like this and maybe bump it out a little bit as it gets up in this vicinity, just to give you the illusion of it is reflecting that object above it. And then same thing for underneath it. I want it to look like she's off the ground a little bit, so I'm making sure that I bring this in a little diagonal way, bringing it straight down and bringing it out a bit to resemble what's happening above it. And then I'm just going to color it in. I'm using a vertical brush stroke just to get the paint on here, and also to give it more of a loose reflective image. But again, it does not need to be exactly a mirror image, so don't feel the pressure to make it of such. And then once I've got that on there, I'm going to just tweak my colors. I'm not washing my brush. I'm picking up some brown and some rust. I know that I have brown and rust on this side, so I'm just streaking some brown and rust over on this side. I'm going to do it on the right hand side, and I'm doing a very loose reflection here, so don't feel it needs to be perfect. This one's got a little bit more brown, so I brought a little bit more brown onto my brush, and again just bringing it down. Again, I'm not doing anything really fancy in through here, just trying to keep a similar color palette. I've got my darkness at the bottom of my shoe in through here, so I just picked up a little bit of black and rust, and I'm going to bring this up this side of the shoe. I have a little bit of darkness underneath here, so just making sure I represent that darkness in through there. And then I am going to wipe my brush off because I had a little bit too much paint on there. Bring this all the way down, and then I'm just going to watch and see if I need a little bit maybe more rust over here. And again, I'm just really giving a loose interpretation. I need a little bit of white. I keep wiping my brush off on my paper towel to just make sure that I've got the not too much paint on my brush, but enough to give me a good representation. I need to put a little bit of white over on this right one as well. So here and here, and again, just wiping my brush off and just moving my brush up and down just to get that that reflection in there. Make sure it all talks to each other. And if you wanted to, you could pick up a little bit of darkness, maybe some brown and some rust to make it a little bit darker at the bottom, and just pull it up just to give it that bit of a more natural reflection coming towards the viewer, that would definitely add a bit more dimension to it. And then once you've got your shoes done, I'm going to wash and dry that brush. And again, you can certainly keep tweaking this as much as you want, but it doesn't have to be. We're not going for photorealism. We're just going for something that is representational and giving us a good reflective impression in the floor itself. And then I am washing and drying my medium brush. I'm going to be doing my reflection of my leaves. So again, my colors are the same. So I'm using some of that dark green, and this is going to be somewhere in through here. And I'm just going to kind of loosely give myself a little bit of a reflection. And again, I don't want it to be a mirror image. So I just picked up a little bit of black and white as well, some of those original colors that I used, just to give you this loose interpretation of a reflection on the ground, maybe a little one back here of that, and the reflection is going to be kind of opposite in direction as what you see up top. I think I need a little bit darker just so we can separate the two, make sure that they look different. So you don't necessarily want it to look like another leaf. If you want it to look like a reflection, it might, if it's too close to it, which it's gonna be, you're gonna have some separation, which could be making it a little bit darker, or again, out of focus will help. So that works for me in through there. And then I'm gonna do a reflection of my, oh, I need this little leaf in through here too. So that's gonna be my green and white, and maybe just a little bit in through here. Oops, that's over the tip of that. That wouldn't happen. Something like that. And maybe a little bit of black just to get them to separate. So this might act as like a shadow and a reflection as we're going through this process. Yeah, that looks pretty. Something like that. And then I've got my shadow, or again, could be a shadow slash reflection of my flower. So I'm gonna start with some red and black now that I'm thinking shadow, and I'm going to go right underneath here. I want it to look like it's lifted off a bit, so something like this, because the feet look like they have a little bit of a shadow under them too. And then once I get into this vicinity, I'm just going to wipe off my brush and pick up some of my pink from my flower in through here, and I see that it is on the rounder side in through here. And really, again, I'm just going for something that is going to give the viewer a good illusion of this being a reflection. So you just want to color, or you want to carry similar color patterns. So right now I'm just kind of getting a loose interpretive shape down on my on the floor, and I'm just kind of rubbing in that paint. And of course you can have it loose. It doesn't have to be anything perfect. I want to have maybe some coming out over in through here and giving the impression of that other little one back there. So again, just a little bit of my pink, rubbing it in here. I'm going to take a bit of my red and get some of those deeper, darker areas maybe in through here. And again, I'm just having fun with this. It doesn't, all I need is, if I got red here, put some red here. If I've got white here, put some white there. So I am not laboring over it too much, because I want it to be on the looser side. I want it to just be a relaxed kind of interpretation of what we're seeing up above. And I don't want to necessarily need to or want to labor over it too much. So I've got this one in through here, so maybe something like that will tell the story of that reflection. And of course, if you wanted any little spin in to represent the center, you could certainly just kind of give a couple of gentle strokes like that, maybe put a tiny bit of red or black little marks in this area, and that's going to provide you with all you need to create a convincing reflection. As long as you've carried some of those colors in a similar pattern down into the bottom area, then that's going to give the viewer enough information to understand that that is in fact a reflection of the object above it. And then we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this representation all nice and convincing down in your reflection, you can put this medium brush away. Of course, this is again one of those steps where I'm going to want to sit here forever, but you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right corner. I'm going to be using my small brush and black paint. I'm going to sign mine in the bottom left. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a special symbol. Whatever you'd like to be your identifying mark is totally fine. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a beautiful ballerina image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.